These are brand new 2026 trucks, still under warranty, and mechanics are already saying don't buy. And most owners don't realize the pattern until it's too late. Stay with me, because the truck you're considering might already be on this list. Ford Ranger. Nobody expects the warning to come from a mid-sized truck that looks this composed at a stoplight. Ford Ranger 2026 arrives with confident proportions, turbocharged torque promises, and a reputation borrowed from decades of global use. On paper, it appears balanced, capable, and modern without excess. In practice, mechanics are beginning to see a different pattern form once miles accumulate and systems interact under daily use. The Ranger appeals because it fits real life. It slides into parking garages, handles commutes without drama, and still advertises trail readiness and towing numbers that sound serious. That versatility is exactly why the problems matter. This truck is not pushed to extremes. It is driven normally, serviced on schedule, and still returns with issues that should not surface this early. The most common complaints center around electronics integration. Sensors, driver assistance modules, and powertrain management systems are tightly packed and heavily interdependent. When one component drifts out of spec, it often triggers cascading faults. A warning light clears, then reappears. A software update helps briefly. The visit repeats. Diagnosis time stretches. Owners leave thinking the issue is resolved, only to come back weeks later. Under the hood, the turbocharged engine delivers strong low-end response. But heat management and long-term component stress are emerging concerns. These are not catastrophic failures. They are small degradations that compound. Hoses, connectors, and calibration tolerances become the weak links. Each repair looks minor in isolation. Together, they form a pattern of repeat service appointments. From a market standpoint, the Ranger sits in a dangerous middle ground. It is marketed as simpler than a full-size truck, while delivering nearly the same technology density. That combination reduces margin for error. Full-size platforms often absorb complexity better due to space and redundancy. Compact platforms do not have that luxury. Ownership data from early cycles shows a consistent trend. The truck rarely strands anyone. It rarely fails loudly. Instead, it erodes confidence quietly. Time in the shop increases. Trust decreases. The cost is not just financial. It is psychological. A truck meant to be dependable starts to feel conditional. This is why mechanics flag the Ranger early, not because it is dramatic, but because it is repetitive. Reliability is not defined by how a truck behaves in its first year. It is defined by how often it needs attention when nothing unusual has happened. Matters because it sets the tone for this list. These warnings are not about abuse, neglect, or unrealistic expectations. They are about normal ownership, revealing fragile intersections between design ambition and real-world durability. And if this is the starting point, the next truck shows how fast repetition turns into real ownership consequences once size, cost, and complexity rise. Jeep Gladiator. Novelty can carry a truck only so far before physics and wear start asking uncomfortable questions. Jeep Gladiator. 2026 enters garages with unmistakable presence. It looks like freedom on wheels, a pickup shaped by open-air heritage and trail imagery rather than spreadsheets. That image is powerful. It convinces owners that compromises are part of character, not warning signs. Mechanics see the results once miles stack and enthusiasm cools. The Gladiator attracts attention because it promises something different. Removable doors, exposed hinges, and upright lines create emotional pull few trucks match. It feels personal, almost defiant. Yet beneath that personality sits a platform, stretched beyond its original intent. Turning a short wheelbase off-road vehicle into a pickup required structural decisions that still echo through service bays. Suspension and steering behavior generate the most repeat conversations. Owners describe vague tracking, premature wear, and alignment complaints that never fully disappear. Adjustments help temporarily. Components are replaced. The symptoms return. None of it feels catastrophic. All of it feels persistent. Drivetrain concerns follow a similar pattern. The engine itself is generally durable, but supporting systems tell a different story. Cooling components, sensors, and driveline connections experience stress under loads. This truck advertises confidently. Towing numbers look fine in marketing material. In real use, heat and vibration expose margins that are thinner than expected. Weather exposure compounds everything. A truck designed to invite the elements must seal perfectly every time. Over months and years, seals, fatigue, electrical connectors, see moisture. Interior components age unevenly. These are not design mistakes. They are consequences of prioritizing experience over isolation. From a data standpoint, the Gladiator shows a higher frequency of medium severity service visits compared to similarly priced midsize pickups. Repairs are rarely single-visit resolutions. They are sequences. A fix today leads to a follow-up tomorrow. That cycle wears down confidence faster than any single bill. Emotionally, this truck creates tension between desire and reality. Owners want to love it. Many do, but love does not cancel downtime. When a vehicle requires constant explanations, it stops feeling like a tool and starts feeling like a project. Market impact matters here. The Gladiator holds value because demand remains strong. That masks ownership friction early. Resale optimism delays hard decisions. Mechanics notice that owners often tolerate more issues than they would with a conventional truck, simply because alternatives feel less interesting. Earns its place because the Gladiator teaches an important lesson. Distinctiveness does not dilute mechanical truth. Every design choice carries a cost. When those costs stack quietly, the experience changes. Repetition feels tolerable when expectations are emotional. The next truck replaces emotion with luxury, technology, and expense. Where patience disappears faster, fixes feel temporary, and every return visit chips away at confidence long before reliability ever stabilizes. If this breakdown is saving you time or money, hit like so others see it, subscribe for weekly mechanic-driven analysis, and leave your experience below. The patterns you share help expose problems faster and protect owners before mistakes repeat. GMC Sierra 1500. Comfort can hide trouble longer than noise ever could. GMC Sierra 1500. 2026 presents itself as confidence refined. Broad shoulders, quiet cabins, and layered technology suggest a truck that has matured past rough edges. It feels controlled, deliberate, and premium. That impression holds until ownership stretches beyond the early months, and patterns begin to repeat in service records rather than memories. The Sierra appeals to those who want strength without harshness. Ride quality is smooth. Interiors are calm, screens respond quickly, everything feels managed. That sense of management is also where the trouble starts. Modern Sierra systems do not operate independently. They communicate constantly, sharing data, assumptions, and control authority. When one system hesitates, others respond, sometimes incorrectly. Mechanics describe the same cycle again and again. A warning appears, disappears, then returns. Software updates reduce symptoms without eliminating causes. Sensors drift slightly out of range. Modules misinterpret signals. None of these issues strand the truck. All of them erode trust. The truck works, but never fully. Relaxes into reliability. Transmission behavior generates the most discussion. Shifts feel inconsistent under light throttle. Calibration changes alter behavior, but rarely settle it permanently. Owners notice hesitation one week and harsh engagement the next. Each visit promises improvement. Each fix feels partial. Over time, that inconsistency becomes exhausting. What starts to wear on owners is not a specific failure, but inconsistency in feel. The truck never behaves badly enough to justify alarm, yet it never behaves the same way twice. Steering weight changes subtly. Brake response feels different day to day. Ride quality shifts with load and temperature more than expected. None of this points to a broken component. Instead, it creates a sense that the truck is always adjusting, never settling. Over time, that lack of a consistent baseline becomes tiring. A vehicle meant to feel composed begins to feel unsettled, even when nothing is technically wrong. This inconsistency changes How owners use the truck. Long trips feel less relaxing. Towing requires more mental effort than expected. Drivers compensate instinctively, adjusting habits to match the truck's mood rather than trusting it outright. That adaptation happens quietly. There is no single moment where confidence breaks. It fades through repetition. The Sierra still performs its tasks, but it demands attention while doing them. For a truck positioned as refined and effortless, that ongoing need for adjustment undermines the very promise that attracts buyers in the first place. Market perception complicates the picture. The Sierra commands strong pricing and carries an image of professionalism and success. That image encourages owners to tolerate issues quietly. Trucks like this are often justified rather than questioned. The cost of ownership hides behind comfort and prestige until it becomes impossible to ignore. Belongs here because refinement magnifies disappointment. A rough truck sets expectations low. A refined truck raises them. When reality falls short repeatedly, frustration deepens faster. The Sierra 1500 2026 is not a bad truck. It is an ambitious one. Ambition introduces fragility when systems rely on perfection rather than resilience. Reliability favors simplicity. This platform leans the other direction. Ownership does not collapse overnight. It degrades through repetition, through uncertainty, through the feeling that every drive might reveal something new. That tension changes behavior. People drive differently. They listen harder. They stop trusting silence. A truck should reduce mental load. This one adds it slowly, quietly. Until attention replaces confidence after ownership, expectations are fully recalibrated by experience alone over time. This is manageable when everything feels new. The next truck is one everyone thinks they already understand, and that's the danger. Familiarity keeps owners driving past early signs until repeat. Visits stop feeling optional. Chevrolet Silverado 1500. Familiar shapes can be the hardest ones to question. Chevrolet Silverado 1500 2026 looks like continuity itself. Broad stance, squared edges, and decades of road presence signal stability before the engine even turns over. This truck feels known. That familiarity lowers guardrails. Mechanics notice that owners arrive later, not sooner, because trust delays scrutiny. The Silverado occupies a unique position in the market. It is not sold as an experiment. It is sold as a constant. Generations of use have trained expectations toward durability and straightforward ownership. That history matters, because when problems repeat, they feel out of character rather than unlucky. Service patterns tell a quiet story. Transmission behavior surfaces early in conversations. Not total failure, but hesitation, inconsistent engagement, and shifting logic that changes with conditions. Software. Adjustments smooth one edge while exposing another. The truck adapts, but never settles. Each visit addresses a symptom, not the cycle. Electronics add another layer. Driver assistance systems, infotainment modules, and monitoring sensors communicate constantly. When communication falters, warnings appear without obvious cause. Clearing codes becomes routine. Returning visits become expected. None of this feels urgent. All of it feels unresolved. From a mechanical standpoint, the Silverado remains capable. It hauls, tows, and drives without drama. That capability masks irritation. A truck that still performs encourages patience. Owners accept inconvenience because the core function remains intact. Over time, that patience wears thin. Data from service departments shows a pattern of repeat, moderate severity complaints rather than high severity breakdowns. This matters. Reliability is not only measured by catastrophic failure rates, it is measured by how often a truck interrupts life for attention. The Silverado interrupts more often than its image suggests. Emotionally, this creates friction. A vehicle associated with dependability becomes a source of low-level stress. Owners listen more closely. They anticipate lights. They adjust habits. The relationship shifts from confidence to monitoring. That shift changes the ownership experience more than any single repair bill. Market momentum keeps the Silverado moving. High-volume sales normalize complaints. When many trucks exist, many issues exist. Patterns emerge faster. But accountability diffuses. Individual experiences feel isolated until they are not. Earns its position because it demonstrates how legacy can soften warnings. Familiarity delays reaction. History encourages forgiveness. That combination allows repetition to persist longer than it should. The Silverado 1500 2026 is not failing in the traditional sense. It is aging faster than expected under modern complexity. Layered updates, evolving calibrations, and interconnected systems strain a platform built on long-standing assumptions. Ownership remains manageable, but less restful. The truck still does its job. It simply demands more attention than it used to. That demand accumulates quietly, altering perception mile by mile, visit by visit, until the idea of dependability feels conditional rather than assumed. We see this all the time. The smoother a truck feels, the longer problems get ignored. The next one rides so well that owners don't question it until visits add up, and the gap between expectation and reality becomes impossible to explain. Ram 1500. Smoothness can disguise instability longer than raw power ever could. Ram 1500 2026 delivers one of the most comfortable rides in the full-size truck segment. From the driver's seat, everything feels controlled, insulated, and deliberate. Road imperfections fade. Cabin noise disappears. The truck moves with composure that feels engineered for confidence. That calm is precisely why mechanics pay attention when patterns emerge beneath it. The Ram has built its modern reputation on refinement. Suspension tuning favors comfort. Interiors prioritize softness and quiet. Technology integrates seamlessly at first glance. This creates an emotional buffer. When issues appear, they feel surprising rather than expected. Owners question the symptom instead of the system. Air suspension remains the most frequent conversation starter. Height adjustments hesitate. Sensors misread position. Compressors cycle more often than designed. The truck does not collapse, it compensates. That compensation masks wear until recalibration no longer works. Repairs restore function temporarily. The cycle repeats. Electrical concerns follow closely. Warning messages appear without consistent triggers. Software updates improve behavior briefly. Modules reset. Lights clear. Then they return. Each event feels isolated. Together, they form a rhythm of interruption that becomes familiar in service lanes. Powertrain behavior adds another layer. Throttle response varies unexpectedly. Shift logic adapts inconsistently to driving style. Nothing fails outright. Everything feels slightly unsettled. That uncertainty forces attention. A truck, meant to relax the driver, instead demands awareness. Another layer shows up during routine ownership, especially once warranties enter the conversation. Because many of these systems are software governed, fixes often require dealer authorization, updates, or waiting on revised calibrations. That creates dependence rather than resolution. Owners aren't just fixing problems, they're tracking versions. Loaners become part of the experience. Small issues linger while paperwork moves. Resale conversations start earlier than planned, not because the truck is unusable, but because predictability matters. The Ram doesn't strand people, it inconveniences them just enough. Often enough that ownership begins to feel negotiated instead of owned over years of normal use. From a data perspective, the Ram shows elevated repeat visit frequency related to comfort-focused systems rather than core mechanical failure. That distinction matters. Failures that do not immobilize still degrade ownership. Time is lost. Appointments multiply. Trust erodes incrementally. Emotionally, this truck creates cognitive dissonance. It feels premium. It looks sorted, it drives well, and yet it keeps returning. Owners begin to rationalize. They accept explanations. They adjust expectations. That adjustment marks the turning point where confidence quietly leaves the relationship. Market positioning complicates accountability. The Ram is often praised for innovation. Innovation introduces complexity. Complexity demands precision. Precision leaves little room for tolerance once wear begins. Modern systems assume ideal conditions longer than reality allows. When refinement fails, disappointment cuts deeper. A rough truck can improve with time. A refined truck reveals its weaknesses faster once the polish fades. The Ram 1500. 2026 is not unreliable in the traditional sense. It is sensitive. Sensitive systems react strongly to minor deviations. Those reactions ripple across the vehicle, creating patterns rather than incidents. Ownership does not collapse suddenly. It stretches. Patience thins. Small interruptions accumulate until silence no longer feels reassuring. The truck remains capable. It simply demands more forgiveness than expected. This is usually where people start saying, "That's just how it is now." The next truck proves that once modernization moves faster than durability, reputation stops helping, and you're back to figuring things out from scratch. If this kind of mechanic-level breakdown matters to you, subscribe now. These patterns surface quietly, and staying ahead means seeing them early. Toyota Tundra. Reputation can be heavier than steel when expectations finally collide with reality. Toyota Tundra 2026 carries decades of earned trust into a very different mechanical era. For years, the name stood for durability through simplicity. Owners expected long intervals, minimal surprises, and quiet dependability. That history is exactly why mechanics pay close attention when repeat patterns begin appearing where none were expected. The modern Tundra represents a turning point. Turbocharged power replaced traditional displacement. Advanced electronics replaced mechanical tolerance. On paper, the changes improved efficiency, performance, and compliance. In service bays, they introduced complexity that behaves differently over time. The most frequent concerns center on drivetrain behavior. Not outright failure, but inconsistency. Power delivery varies. Throttle response changes unexpectedly. Calibration updates adjust feel without fully stabilizing it. Owners describe the truck as capable yet unpredictable, a combination that unsettles confidence, even when performance numbers remain strong. Electronics contribute quietly. Sensors communicate constantly, managing boost, transmission logic, and safety systems simultaneously. When data conflicts, warning messages appear, they clear, they return. Each visit resolves a symptom. The pattern persists. Mechanics recognize this rhythm quickly. Owners learn it slowly. Cooling and heat management also surface in discussions. Turbocharged systems generate stress that older designs never faced. Components operate closer to thresholds. Margins tighten. Small deviations matter more. Wear accelerates invisibly until it surfaces as repeat attention rather than dramatic failure. From a data standpoint, the shift is clear. Earlier generations showed low visit frequency but high mileage longevity. Newer models show more visits earlier in life. The truck remains functional. It simply demands more oversight. That change alone challenges long-standing assumptions. Emotionally, this creates friction unlike any other truck on this list. Owners are not prepared to question this nameplate. They trust it instinctively. When issues arise, denial often comes first. Rationalization follows. Only later does acceptance arrive. Another change owners notice is how maintenance strategy evolves. Preventive habits once taken for granted no longer feel sufficient. Oil intervals, warm-up behavior, and driving patterns become topics of discussion. Owners modify use to protect systems rather than rely on inherent tolerance. That shift subtly reverses the relationship. Instead of the truck adapting to the owner adapts to the truck, marking a fundamental change in what long-term dependability means in practice. Market perception softens scrutiny. Strong resale values and brand confidence mask early ownership friction. Complaints feel personal rather than systemic until repetition reveals otherwise. Mechanics see the pattern across vehicles. Individual owners experience it in isolation. When a platform changes direction, history no longer applies cleanly. Reliability must be rebuilt, not inherited. That rebuilding process is underway, but it is not complete. The Toyota Tundra 2026 is not a failure. It is a recalibration in progress. Sensitivity replaces tolerance. Precision replaces forgiveness. Those traits demand ideal conditions longer than reality provides. Ownership remains manageable. Downtime remains limited. But trust, once automatic, becomes conditional. Owners listen more closely. They notice changes sooner. They schedule visits proactively. That vigilance alters the ownership experience permanently. This entry matters because it signals something larger. Even the strongest reputations must prove themselves again when design philosophy shifts. Longevity is not promised by history alone. It is earned through repetition that holds steady, not repetition that returns. When a name this big can't lean on history anymore, the last truck makes things obvious. There's too much volume, too many miles, and too many examples for patterns to stay hidden or excuses to keep working. Ford F-150. Scale hides patterns until repetition makes them impossible to ignore. Ford F-1 52,026 stands at the center of the modern truck market. It is everywhere. It sells in enormous volume, spans countless trims, and touches more driveways than any other pickup. That reach is its strength and also its liability, because patterns surface faster when millions of miles accumulate under ordinary use. Mechanics do not describe the F-150 as fragile, they describe it as familiar. The same concerns arrive repeatedly, across configurations, engines, and ownership styles. Transmission behavior tops the list. Hesitation, rough engagement, and shifting logic that never fully settles generate return visits that feel routine rather than alarming. Electronics add weight to that routine. Driver assistance systems, infotainment networks, and powertrain controls operate as a single conversation. When communication slips, warnings appear without clear causes. Updates smooth behavior temporarily. Resets clear symptoms briefly. Then the cycle resumes. Each event alone feels minor. Together, they define ownership. Powertrain variety complicates diagnosis. Multiple engines, tuning strategies, and software maps mean no single fix applies universally. What works for one truck fails on another. That variability stretches service time and frustrates resolution. The truck functions, but confidence thins with every appointment. From a data perspective, the F-150 shows a high frequency of repeat moderate severity visits rather than catastrophic failures. This distinction matters. Reliability is measured in interruptions, not just breakdowns. The more often life pauses for attention, the heavier ownership feels. Emotionally, popularity creates denial. Owners assume issues are isolated because the truck is common. Familiarity reduces urgency. Problems are tolerated longer. That tolerance allows patterns to persist quietly until repetition becomes undeniable. Market dominance amplifies consequences. When a truck this widespread stumbles, the impact spreads quickly. Service departments notice trends early. Owners notice them later. By the time recognition arrives, habits have already changed. Listening replaces trust. Monitoring replaces ease. This is not a niche experiment or a low-volume outlier. This is the benchmark. When the benchmark shows repetition, it resets expectations for the entire segment. The Ford F-1 52,026 is not collapsing. It is aging under complexity faster than tradition suggests. Layered technology, aggressive rollout cycles, and constant updates strain long-term consistency. Ownership remains functional, and capability remains unquestioned across daily use. What fades is certainty over time. The truck still works, but it demands constant attention and awareness. Silence no longer reassures the driver. An absence of warning lights becomes relief rather than normal operation. This matters because repetition is the clearest signal mechanics trust after years in service bays. When the same truck returns again and again for similar concerns, patterns outweigh promises, marketing claims, and reputations, revealing long-term reliability through accumulated visits, interrupted routines, rising vigilance, and the quiet erosion of confidence that ownership was supposed to provide. Patterns like these matter because ownership is measured over years, not weeks, and repetition shapes behavior, budgeting, and confidence long after excitement fades and expectations reset under the weight of routine use across seasons' ownership cycles, quietly and predictably. And while this countdown ends here, the conversation does not, because once number 1 reveals itself, the next step is deciding which trucks avoid these cycles entirely, where durability still outweighs ambition, and where ownership feels settled rather than negotiated every mile forward. If you've owned or worked on any of these trucks, drop your experience in the comments. Patterns only surface when owners speak up. Hit like if this saved you time or money, and subscribe for daily mechanic level breakdowns you won't hear from dealerships.